Hidden Geometry in the Title Page, Part 3. Today we'll explore some unusual geometry. This is essentially a sequel to Hidden Geometry in the Title Page Part 1, Hidden Geometry in the Title Page Part 2, and Sacred Geometry in the Title Page, though you don't have to watch all of those videos in order to get the gist of what's going on in this one. In Sacred Geometry in the Title Page, I demonstrated how you can construct a chirochristogram using specific points and lines on the page. When you connect 4 of these lines together, you can create an interesting view of a pyramid from the top. When you extend the lines, you notice that in Shakespeare's, several letters are completely within the lines. We can do a gematria sum of those letters, and we find out the sum is 71. Now we'll explore some hidden symbols. In order to do that, we have to backtrack a little bit to earlier videos. Recall that the inner arm lines on the left and right hand side of the doublet converge midway between the wire support and the right hand seam of the collar ruff. The outer lines converge at specific points on the jaw and collar darts. When we extend the lines, we can get a small X. If we add to that the lines from the outer arm of the doublet, we get a big X. Hidden within this figure is an upright double V and an upside down double V. When I first saw this construction, it reminded me of something very powerful in Western civilization. The depiction of the eye of God or providence. Never mind that the eye is above the triangle on the title page. It's striking enough that it reminded me of this figure. Let's enlarge the detail. I have kept the point of the triangle intact so that you can understand better what's going on. Notice the iris. There is an inner ring just outside the pupil, which I call ring number 1. Outside of that is ring number 2. Outside of that is ring number 3. Finally, ring number 4. Is this a 4-O illusion of the type that Alexander Woe and others have found elsewhere in the authorship texts? When I first saw this, I was reminded of something else. The four humors as envisioned by the medieval and Renaissance doctors and physiologists. The four humors are essentially 4 different types of personality: sanguine, quick as air; choleric, as reckless as fire; phlegmatic, as fluid as water; and melanch or melancholic, as steady or as dark as earth. In order to understand this better, we turn to Utriusque Cosmi, published in 1614 and written by Robert Flood. It's essentially a compendium of all metaphysical and physical knowledge: arithmetic, geometry, perspective, the art of drawing, military tactics, and what they knew of science. Book 1, page 29, has the following diagram. Notice that it looks like the inverse of an iris, a pupil, and an eyeball, though the pupil itself is still dark. In Book 2, on page 63, we have another diagram further explaining the fabric of the macrocosmos. While it is hard to see, we have 4 rings surrounding a dark center. Flood continues on page 75 to explain how the elements interact with each other to create matter. As you can see, the inner ring in Flood's diagram represents Earth. Ring number 2 is water. Ring number 3 is air. And ring number 4 is fire. In Book 5 of this, on page 141, we see his conception of the celestial imperium. As you can see, we have the 4 elements again. Ring number 1 surrounds the sun. Outside of that, we have another ring. We have a third ring. Finally, a 4th ring. We can conclude that the people who put together the First Folio wanted to allude to the four humors and the four elements in the depiction of this eye. I'm going to present more evidence that there are hidden geometries and shapes and symbols in the Droeshout, and we're going to concentrate on the eye again. If we outline the section of the iris that is absolutely at the peak or the pinnacle of the triangle that we saw with the big X, we can fill it in like this. Now, we can also outline this small section. In as well. And then we can join the lines. This line here, extending from the center of the pupil to cross into the upper eyelid, might be a guideline and a hint that we are to pay attention to the eye and look for tiny details like we have found. Curiously, it's at 174 degrees from the horizontal. And of course, the shape looks familiar. It's a Mason square. I believe these three things are symbolic. The eye above the triangle is the eye of God or the eye of providence. The four rings are the four humors or the four elements. And the tiny little detail in the pupil and iris combine to give us a Mason square. When we zoom out a little bit, we can see that the inverted V and the cross in the Chi-Rho Christogram resemble nothing less than Masonic symbols. The eye of the figure becomes the eye of God, and the compass extends from that into the sleeves. Of course, the Mason square nestles nicely into the top part of the Chi-Rho's cross, the cross of St. Andrew. What was unexpected was the following. Notice the arrows are pointing to where the compass points end. The left compass point terminates at the center of the loop on the embroidery. The right point terminates at the fourth bead from the top on the right-hand shoulder wing. Also the seventh bead from the top of that line of embroidery. And the seventh letter in the alphabet is the letter G. What makes this even more astonishing and more peculiar between the arms of this Mason square, we have a stylized number 11. And the 11th letter in the Latin alphabet is L, which is the Hebrew word for God. So, is this another hidden sign of God's hand in creating the First Folio? So, what is the message behind this? First, we have the big X, signifying that we are to ignore the portrait, just as the dedication to the reader said. Reader, look not on his book, or on his picture rather, but his book. We have a hidden double V, an upside down hidden double V, Masonic symbols plus the four humors. When added to the chirochristogram, it creates a very powerful symbol of God's handiwork and the Mason's handiwork in the creation of the First Folio. In previous videos, we've seen how the number of buttons, 14, on the doublet correspond to the letter O in gematria. We have also seen that the left-hand panel that we see is a nice letter V, and that it has the sides of it are exactly 20 degrees apart, and the 20th letter of the Latin alphabet is also V. We have also seen that we can create 3 versions of triple V hidden in the portrait. We've also seen 17 and multiples of that number. We have also seen today that we can get a gematria sum of 71. We also have a mask outline and 2 hidden monograms, OV. This is further evidence, if not proof, Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, was Shakespeare, and he was also a Rosicrucian. Thanks for watching.